Circus. Although the symbolism of the circus alone is sufficient to fill a book, to understand its origins and purpose, it has to be seen in the context of the whole spectacle of circuses and fairgrounds, as both provide coded and symbolic representations of metaphysical concepts like twin towers and mystic symbols like horses and clowns, and the various methods by which spiritual experiences can be obtained, like fear. A circus is a collection of entertainers, including clowns, acrobats, symbolic animals like elephants and camels, musicians, dancers, hoop jumpers, dogs, tightrope walkers, trapeze, jugglers, magicians, and so on, all of whom perform within a tent-like structure known as the big top. The Fairground or Funfair is a collection of amusement rides, food stalls and games of chance and skill. So in the big top, people are entertained. In the Funfair, they entertain themselves. The word circus derives from the Latin circus and Greek kukos, meaning circle or ring. And indeed, the layout of the big top is based on the cosmic egg, with its levels and layers and central ring. See Cosmic Egg video. And it is why the lower seats were once reserved for persons of rank. They were symbolically closer to the cosmic centre. Indeed, in ancient Rome, the circus was a building for the exhibition of horse and chariot races. See our video on horses and that on chariots. And the circuses of Rome were similar to the ancient Greek hippodromes. In other words, circus and its symbolism is thousands, not hundreds of years old, and its symbolism travelled west, possibly via the Romans. The Hippodrome of Constantinople, for example, operated until the 13th century, and its heritage travelled via medieval and Renaissance jesters, minstrels, magicians and troubadours. And it is worth adding that when Philip Astley created a circular amphitheatre in 1768 in London to perform his trick horse riding skills, he was able to hire acrobats, tightrope walkers, jugglers and a clown to fill in the pauses between acts. The Nottingham Goose Fair. One of the longest running fairs in history is held in Nottingham, UK. Most historians agree the fair probably began around 1284, when a charter was granted by King Edward I. Goose Fair started as a trade event, selling high-quality cheese, but no mention of any geese. It is still held, but the fair is not a trade fair. It has a truly vast number of rides and games. As the publicity says, visitors to the fair will enjoy more than 500 attractions. It may be one of the best examples of the symbolism of the fairground there is. So what turned a trade fair into a fair with rides and attractions? we have a rather sinister clue in the wording of the publicity for the fair. The name probably came from the hundreds of geese which were driven from Lincolnshire to Nottingham. A fat roast goose was a traditional Michaelmas treat, at which point it may be worth watching our video on the symbolism of the goose. By the mid-1400s, Roman Catholicism had acquired extensive power, which reached into every area of people's lives. In 1468, Pope Paul II issued a public decree which declared witchcraft to be a crimen exceptum, a crime so extreme that normal judicial processes were not applied. The decree removed the limitations on the use of physical torture against accused witches. Furthermore, suspicions of witchcraft were said to be proof, because God never allows the persecution of innocents. This logic sets up an almost unfalsifiable trap. After all, if God never allows the persecution of innocents, then anyone who is successfully persecuted cannot be innocent. Otherwise, God would have intervened. Why on earth was this barbarity inflicted on numerous geese, wise women? Ignorance, superstition, and fear. In 1315, a cold, wet summer resulted in massive crop failures, starvation, and a famine that lasted 7 years. People died in their millions. 25 years later, the Black Death swept across Eurasia, killing between 75 and 200 million. Furthermore, on the 29th of July 1478, in the blazing heat of a bright summer afternoon, people were plunged into a chilly, silent, alien darkness, an eclipse. And exactly the same happened then as is happening now. People look round for someone to blame. The rise of conspiracy theories. Initially, some argue that these horrors were the wrath of God, and this was humankind's punishment. The Church's frantic efforts to appease this enraged deity seemed to meet with yet more disasters and disease, leading people to assume not that it may have been their fault, or the Church's, or nobody's, but that it had to be someone else. So they looked round for an answer that would absolve them of all responsibility, and the obvious answer was the devil. And if it was the devil, then how could he best act upon our world? Through people different from us. The Prince of Darkness, they said, would confer upon them unnatural powers to control the world about them. And who had inexplicable powers? Witches. Wise women. So in this way, a trading fair became a goose fair, where the geese were rounded up by the foxes, see our video, tortured and burnt alive. So in memory of all those who were killed by this brutality, and in remembrance of their martyrdom, those left created the circus and fairgrounds. The symbols, concepts and videos. We cannot hope to produce videos for all the circus and fairground symbolism, so instead we have provided a brief explanation of some, and where a video is available have indicated its name. Acrobats. Acrobats preserve the knowledge that out-of-body experiences and complex out-of-body manoeuvres existed. Some of the acrobatic feats involved the seesaw and very complex balancing acts, and we explore this in the video on the symbolism of scales, balance, justice and Libra, a big top. As we have indicated, the big top is simply a representation of the cosmic egg, and we have a video on this. The ringmaster is often dressed in clothes reminiscent of fox hunters, and he often helps in the acts with horses. See our video on foxes, coyotes and jackals. Cages. Although the cruelty of keeping animals in cages is recognised, a cage is a symbol of a spirit trapped by a body. As such, the keeping of highly spirited animals in cages also has symbolic meaning, and the more the poor animal paces up and down, the more emphatic is the impression that all spirits long to be set free. Candy floss is another symbol for spirit energy and is equivalent to wool. See our video, Sheep and Wool. The carousel or merry-go-round is a wonderfully complex symbolic object. First of all, it captures the symbolism of the means of transport, the means of ecstatic flight. Horses feature prominently on the ride, but there are often other animals and birds, crows, geese, swans and so on. See all our videos here. The ride goes round and round in concentric circles, the wheel of life, with a centrally lit pillar, symbolic of the power driving the wheel, the unmoving mover. The symbolism of the cosmic egg and levers and layers is built into the ride. See the video. Each animal has a pole, a celestial pole, which makes it go up and down, representing ascent and descent. Clowns. We have a video for clowns. It is not unusual for the clowns to wear enormous shoes, and the symbolism of both feet and shoes is explored in a video. Some have the most extraordinary hair. See video. Contortionists are able to twist and bend their body into strange and unnatural positions. They once employed strange costumes to emulate shape-shifting. Some these days use body paint. Dodgems are intended to be representation of chariots. See our video on chariots. Elephants, we have a video for elephants. A Ferris wheel. The symbolism of the Ferris wheel is that of the wheel, the cycles of life and evolution. Their use can be traced back to at least the 1600s. It is also connected to the signs of the zodiac. You get on the wheel at birth, are taken round until you die, back at the beginning again, where you are disgorged into the spirit world. Fire eating. Fire symbolism is explored in the video Fire, Flames and Purgatory. Although there is an obvious link with dragons. Ghost train. Both ghost and train are symbolic. Shock can provoke spiritual experiences in quite hardened people. Giants and dwarfs. Both were once recognised spirit beings. And there is some evidence that giants existed physically. Helter-skelter has very similar symbolism to that used in Snakes and Ladders. See our video, where one climbs a ladder but descends a snake. The two means of ascent and descent and then combined with tower symbolism. Hoops of fire are explored in the video on flames, fire and purgatory. Horses are covered in our video on horses. House or hall of mirrors. A psychomantium or socomantium is the correct name for a room with multiple mirrors, a hall of mirrors. It is a room which serves to befuddle the mind, confuse the reasoning system, making the person more open to spiritual experience and more inclined to question the nature of reality. See video on reality. The human cannonball. The human cannonball, a person with a cannonball, is ejected from a specially designed cannon, landing on a net. The cannon used does not work like a regular cannon, since that would blast the human into pieces. The impetus is provided by a spring or a jet of compressed air. In a circus performance, gunpowder may be used to provide visual and auditory effects. Symbolically, it represents either a very violent out-of-body experience or a near-death experience, as the cannon represents the tunnel. Jugglers, jesters and harlequins all have hats or hair with horns. See our video on horns. A video is planned. The knife thrower. One of the experiences in rebirth is that of being symbolically pierced by knives or swords. In this act, a girl is attached to a wheel in the position of the symbolic cross. See a video on the cross, and the wheel is turned and knives thrown at her. Thus this act is a reminder of rebirth. See a video on the falcon. Lion taming. The lion in circuses is tamed, and this symbolic act is described in our video on the lion. The roller coaster. During visions and out-of-body experiences, the novice is apt to be somewhat uncontrolled in their flight paths. They often find themselves hurtling up and down the vibrational levels in a somewhat out-of-control way. Levels and layers. A roller coaster is simply a symbolic replica of that experience. Stilts are a sort of badge of office. Look how high I can ascend, and a symbolic reference to 3-mile boots and giant strides. The strongman. One of the types of spiritual experience is to gain powers that are superhuman. And one of these types of experience is to gain extraordinary amounts of strength. Swan boats. Both swans, see our video on swans, and boats, see our video on boats, are symbolic. A tightrope. The bridge between one's mortal soul and immortal soul is often portrayed as a dangerous and very skinny bridge, and the tightrope is one symbol used to represent this perilous passage. See our video on the bridge. Trapeze. The trapeze incorporates swing symbolism, but is made spectacular and more memorable by having the action occur high above the ground. The video on the concept of contrast, coins, swings and pendulums explores this complex metaphysical set of concepts. In addition, some trapeze acts involve a single girl hanging upside down by her foot or by a rope, and in this case she is enacting the symbolism of the hangman in the tarot. See the video. The tunnel of love. Self-explanatory up to a point. Many of the methods used in the past were based on the channeling of sexual energy. The wall of death. The wall of death, or well of death, features a silo or barrel-shaped wooden cylinder, typically ranging from 20 to 36 feet, 6.1 to 11 metres in diameter, inside which motorcyclists travel along the vertical wall and perform stunts held in place by the centrifugal force. The Indian version is called the Well of Death and is a more accurate name for the symbolism, the endless cycles of reincarnation. See our video on the well. It is worth mentioning that women are both celebrated and raised to a high status in circus, whilst the men remain as clowns and jesters. It is women who fly through the air and ride on horses and tame lions. See our video on Virgo, Virgins and High Priestesses.